So many jiu-jitsu competitors feel anxiety when they go to compete. Some coaches will advise, be as calm as you can. Other coaches will say, embrace the fear. So what's the right answer? Listen to this video and I'll give you the answer. First, why would you listen to me? Well, I've been training jiu-jitsu since January of 1999, and I started competing right away. I got my blue belt, and in April of 2000, I went down to Florida to compete in what we called the Pan Ams. Today, people call it the Pans. So I went down there, and for 2 days, I had some of the worst anxiety I've ever felt in my life. Oddly enough, I did pretty well. I won my division, but man, it was painful dealing with all that anxiety. So for the next 24 years, I just dedicated myself to figure this out. I read psychology books, sports psychology, evolutionary psychology. I watched videos. I did everything I could to crack this code, figure out this problem. Here's what I came up with. Now check out this graph. That there's an optimal level of excitement or arousal that you want for a particular activity. So in other words, if you're too excited in jiu-jitsu, what's going to happen is it's going to lead to stiffness. So that's going to make it easier for your opponent to manipulate you, to sweep you, to take you down. The other thing is that stiffness will most likely waste energy. The other problem with being too excited is that it could give you an internal focus. So instead of focusing on your opponent, how they're standing, where their feet are, where their weight is, you can become more internally focused and be more self-conscious, and you'll have delayed response times, delayed reaction. All of this results in poor performance. Now, let's look at the other side. If you're not excited enough, you'll be too flat, so you won't be as responsive to your opponent's actions. You'll have a delayed reaction time to what your opponent is doing. Also, you're not likely to be competitive enough. A lot of times in matches, the decision is made by who wins the scramble. If you're a little too flat, you might not win those scrambles. So what's the answer? You have to find that right amount of excitement for you, that Goldilocks place where you're excited enough but not too excited. So how do you figure that out? Well, every activity probably has an optimal zone of excitement. So if you're a football player rushing the quarterback, or if you're a power lifter, you probably want to be almost as excited as you can be. If you're trying to sink a putt in golf, you probably want to be really calm. Where does jiu-jitsu fall? Someplace in the middle. You don't want to be too excited, but you don't want to be too flat either. I would call it a moderate amount of excitement. Now there's another factor as well. What is your personality like? Some people are just naturally a little nervous. They may need some calming. Other people are maybe a little too even-keeled, maybe a little too agreeable, so they need to be stimulated more to have a good jiu-jitsu performance. Another factor is what's your style of competing? Some people have this kind of open, creative, unorthodox style. Those people may do better when they're really calm and really relaxed so they can tap into their creativity. Other guys are sort of smashing, hard driving people, so they probably will do better if they're a little bit more excited. Now, most people I found, especially beginner competitors, they're too excited. They're just too anxious. So here's the simple ways to bring that anxiety down. The simplest way is to focus on your physiology. Do what some people call box breathing. So box breathing is typically described as you breathe in for 6 seconds, you hold it for 6 seconds, you exhale for 6 seconds, you hold for another 6 seconds. That's pretty good. What I like to do is something slightly different. I like to breathe in for 4, try to hold for 6, try to exhale for 7 or 8, then maybe hold for 6 again. So when your exhale is longer than your inhale, you tend to stimulate a relaxation response, and that's going to calm you down. Another thing that can help you calm yourself is try not to have any negative thoughts. So when I go to a competition, if I find myself having some negative thought like, oh, what if this guy takes me down? I immediately push that thought out of my head. I actually say to the thought, F you, I don't want to listen to this. and I just banish that from my head. You're better off not even thinking about jiu-jitsu. If you start thinking negative thoughts, it's going to make you overly excited. It's not going to help your performance. Here's another tip to keep yourself calm. Do not rehearse your match in your head. I used to do this all the time. I would think of like, here's my perfect match. I'm going to come out and I'm going to do this and then I'll do that. And I find it does not help. Usually when I'm rehearsing it, my body doesn't know I'm rehearsing and I start to physically get excited and I waste some energy. I cause myself some stress. And when I do it long enough, what eventually happens is my opponent starts winning in my imagination, which I don't need that at all. So don't rehearse. It's like cramming the night before a test. Just get a good night's sleep. And in this case, just stay relaxed. You're going to know what you want to do when you get out there. You're just going to play your game. You do not need to rehearse it. Now, a small number of people need to get more excited than they usually are. This is rare, but it can happen. I think sometimes it happens with people who are very agreeable, like really nice people. So what happens is they're really not competitive enough when they go out onto the mat. So the advice I would give to somebody like that is, think about that gold medal, that it's your medal, and this guy, this opponent, he's trying to take your medal away from you. And you're not going to let him take it. It's yours. So that'll allow you to go out there and really fight for it. Human psychology works in a funny way. We tend to value a loss twice as much as an equivalent gain. So if you start thinking that it's your medal already, you'll fight harder for it than if it's just a medal that's up for grabs. Now think about yourself. What is your game like? What is your personality like? What's the best way for you to go into a jiu-jitsu match?